Ethan presented an idea so audacious that it had never crossed my mind. Yet, that evening transformed everything to my astonishment. The idea of becoming intimate with 3 men enthralled me. The night unfolded in ways you could never have anticipated. That sweltering summer evening remains etched in my memory. As I returned home after a long day at work, the weight of my routine clung to me like a second skin. The hours had stretched endlessly, leaving me drained. My spouse, weary from his own day, occupied the living room. Ethan sat there, reclined on the couch, a glass of wine in hand, his posture casual yet commanding. The amber liquid in his glass caught the light, casting golden reflections onto the walls. When our eyes met, something in his gaze made me pause. There was an intensity there, a fervor entirely unfamiliar yet deeply magnetic. That night, Ethan carried an unusual aura, and the atmosphere was heavy with anticipation, as if the air itself was charged with electricity. "Hi," I greeted him, my voice betraying my exhaustion. Seated beside him, I felt his gaze following my every move. His eyes seemed to drink in my presence, tracking even the slightest shift in my posture. It was unnerving, but also strangely thrilling. "What was work like?" he asked, his tone unexpectedly soft, almost alluring. I sighed, releasing the weight of the day in that single breath. It was a sound Ethan had heard countless times before, but tonight it seemed different. This sigh was heavier, laden with unspoken frustrations and a yearning for something beyond the mundane. Ethan, however, appeared lost in his own world, his thoughts a mystery to me. He seemed utterly absorbed, oblivious to the words I spoke. Instead of responding, he reached out, his hand softly resting on my thigh. The gesture was gentle, familiar, yet tonight it felt distinctly different. His fingertips glided along my leg with a deliberate slowness that sent a shiver through me. It wasn't just a touch. It was a question, a prelude to something yet unspoken. As I turned to meet his gaze, I was startled by what I saw. His eyes brimmed with a ravenous desire, an exhilarating craving that was both intoxicating and disarming. It was as though he saw me in a way he never had before. And for the first time, I felt as if I were standing on the edge of something extraordinary. Ethan leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "I've been thinking," he said, his words deliberate. "Waited. About us, about what we need." A chill coursed through me, and I shifted uneasily in my seat. His tone was unlike anything I had ever heard from him. It was commanding, yet tender, filled with a certainty that made my heart race. "What do you mean?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling slightly. He smiled then, a slow, deliberate smile that sent another shiver down my spine. His hand moved slightly, his fingers brushing against my skin, leaving a trail of warmth in their wake. "It seems we need a change," he began, his eyes locking onto mine. "A spark to invigorate our lives, to reignite what we've lost in the routines of every day." His words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. I felt my stomach tighten, a mixture of fear and intrigue bubbling within me. This was not the Ethan I knew, and yet I found myself drawn to this version of him, this man who spoke with such certainty and passion. Taking a deep breath, I steadied myself. "Are you suggesting?" I trailed off, unsure of how to even articulate the question forming in my mind. Ethan leaned in further, his breath warm against my ear. "I want to see you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "With other men." The words sent a shockwave through me, rendering me momentarily speechless. My thoughts raced, trying to make sense of what he had just said. He continued, his voice steady, unyielding. "Not just any men," he clarified. 3 remarkable, striking men. Adrian, Caleb, and Noah. The names lingered in the air, each one adding to the weight of his suggestion. I searched his face for any hint of doubt, for any sign that this was some elaborate joke, but all I found was unwavering conviction. My heart pounded in my chest as I tried to process the enormity of what he was proposing. The idea was both thrilling and terrifying, a tantalizing glimpse into a world I had never dared to imagine. Do you truly want this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Ethan nodded, his eyes darkened with an insatiable hunger. Yes, he said simply. I want this for you, for us. His words carried a weight that left no room for doubt. I felt a wave of heat wash over me, a mixture of apprehension and excitement coursing through my veins. My mind raced with possibilities, each one more daring than the last. I don't know, I stammered, my voice trembling as I spoke. I've never... Ethan reached for my hand then, giving it a reassuring squeeze. I know it's unconventional, he said gently, but I believe it could be something remarkable. An experience that will bring us closer, that will ignite something extraordinary. His words washed over me, soothing and exhilarating all at once. I found myself entertaining the notion, the idea taking root in my mind despite my initial reservations. Could I really do this? Could I embrace this forbidden fantasy and step into a world so vastly different from my own? As I gazed into Ethan's eyes, searching for any hint of hesitation, all I found was assurance. He believed in this. In me. In us. Very well, I whispered, the words escaping my lips before I could second-guess them. I'll do it. Ethan's eyes sparkled with a sudden intensity, his smile spreading slowly across his face. You won't regret this, he said, his voice tinged with enthusiasm. In the days that followed, anticipation buzzed in the air, a constant undercurrent to our daily routines. Each moment brought me closer to the night Ethan had envisioned, and with it came a mix of anxiety and exhilaration. I couldn't stop my mind from wandering, from imagining what lay ahead. The night finally arrived. Everything had been meticulously planned, each detail carefully considered by Ethan. As we entered the room where Adrian, Caleb, and Noah awaited, my heart pounded in my chest. The atmosphere was electric, charged with an energy I had never experienced before. The three men stood before me, each one exuding a quiet confidence that both intimidated and excited me. Their presence was magnetic, their gazes warm yet piercing. Ethan stood beside me, his hand resting gently on my back. Don't be shy, he said, his voice brimming with encouragement. This is for you. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a near whisper, a tone that sent a chill coursing through me and left me utterly transfixed. I've been contemplating us, he began, each word deliberate, charged, and what we truly need. The weight of his words hung heavily in the air between us. I shifted uncomfortably in my seat, uncertain of our destination and what he intended to unveil. My heartbeat quickened, my chest tightening with an apprehension I couldn't quite place. Could you clarify what you mean? I asked, my voice trembling just enough to betray the unease brewing within me. Ethan smiled, but it wasn't the familiar, easy smile I had grown accustomed to. This smile was different, calculated, enigmatic, and laced with something deeper. He raised his fingers, brushing them lightly against my arm as he spoke, his breath a warm whisper against my ear. It seems we are in need of a change, a spark to invigorate our surroundings, to challenge what we know and explore what we don't, he said. His words lingered, their implications sinking in slowly, like drops of ink spreading through water. My mind raced to grasp his meaning, yet I couldn't shake the sense that we were teetering on the edge of something irreversible. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself as a tightness formed in my stomach. This conversation was steering us into uncharted territory, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for the destination. I swallowed hard, feeling the lump in my throat that always came when uncertainty loomed. Once more, I found myself speaking, my words tentative and my mind clouded with doubt regarding his genuine motives. What exactly are you suggesting, Ethan? Instead of answering immediately, he inclined his head toward me, his lips grazing my neck ever so lightly. The gesture sent a shiver down my spine, and I felt myself leaning into his presence despite the storm of questions swirling in my mind. I look forward to witnessing you, he said, his voice steady and deliberate. Alongside other gentlemen? His words reverberated through me, echoing in my thoughts long after they were spoken. For a moment, I couldn't respond, couldn't even move, The sheer audacity of his statement left me speechless, my mind racing to comprehend the full gravity of what he had just proposed. "Other gentlemen?" I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. He nodded, his gaze locking onto mine, his eyes darkened by an insatiable hunger that both intrigued and terrified me. "Indeed," he replied, his tone unwavering. "Though not just any men. I desire your company alongside 3 remarkable and striking men, Adrian, Caleb, and Noah." The names rolled off his tongue with a familiarity that startled me. Adrian, Caleb, and Noah, 3 individuals I had never considered in any context, outside the mundane. Yet now, they were at the center of this audacious proposition. "Do you truly wish to witness me with other men, Ethan?" I asked again, my voice shaky as I struggled to fully comprehend his intentions. "Yes," he said simply, his conviction unshakable. "I want to see you free, unencumbered, and vibrant. This is not about me relinquishing you, but about us embracing something extraordinary together." His words struck a chord deep within me, challenging my understanding of intimacy, trust, and love. Was this an act of selflessness, or was there an underlying motive I couldn't yet discern? I searched his face for any hint of hesitation, any flicker of doubt, but all I found was unbridled fervor. "Why them?" I asked, my voice quieter now, nearly inaudible. Ethan leaned back slightly, his eyes never leaving mine. "They're exceptional," he said. "Each of them offers something unique, something that I believe will bring out facets of you that even you may not fully realize exist." His words were spoken with such confidence, such assuredness, that I found myself drawn in despite my lingering reservations. There was something intoxicating about the way he spoke, as though he had already envisioned this scenario playing out perfectly, with no room for doubt or failure. "But Ethan," I began, hesitating as I searched for the right words, "this isn't something I've ever considered. It's uncharted territory for me." "I know," he said, his tone softening as he reached for my hand. "But that's precisely why it's so important. I believe this could be transformative, not just for you, but for us. I want to witness you in your most uninhibited state, to see you radiant and alive in ways you've never been before." Fingers interlaced with mine, his touch grounding me even as my mind spun with 1,000 questions. I couldn't deny the allure of his vision, the tantalizing possibility of stepping into a world so vastly different from my own. But with that allure came a profound sense of fear. A fear of the unknown, of losing control, of shattering the delicate balance of our relationship. "Do you truly believe this is what we need?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "I do," he said without hesitation. "I believe this could bring us closer, deepen our connection, and open our eyes to possibilities we've never even dreamed of." His certainty was almost disarming, and for the first time I found myself considering his proposal not as a threat, but as an opportunity, a chance to explore a side of myself I had long suppressed, to step beyond the confines of convention and embrace something entirely new. "Will you trust me in this?" Ethan asked, his eyes searching mine for a response. I hesitated, the weight of his question pressing down on me like a heavy blanket. Trust. It was a word that had always defined our relationship, the foundation upon which everything else was built. And now, he was asking me to extend that trust in a way I never had before. "Yes," I whispered finally, the word escaping my lips before I could second-guess it. Ethan's expression softened, his smile returning, in a way that felt genuine, unguarded. "You won't regret this," he said, his voice filled with quiet assurance. As the evening wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just stepped onto a path that would irrevocably alter the course of my life. Whether for better or worse, I couldn't yet say. But as I sat beside Ethan, feeling the warmth of his presence and the weight of his gaze, I knew one thing for certain: this was the beginning of something extraordinary.